Hi, I'm Dr. Faye Snyder. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I answer the question, how could they do that? If you haven't already watched the attachment video, please do so now because it's going to be relevant to what we're about to talk about. Today we're going to try to understand Robin Williams' recent choice to end his own life. How could he do that? So many of us have been trying to gather information and make sense of what's happened. And there have been a number of explanations that have surfaced, and we're all asking questions about depression and why people who could be so successful and so loved could be depressed as well. So some of the suggestions have been that Robin recently had to sell his estate at Napa, and also that he had major financial payments for alimony. But we do know that he was always good at winning work, and there were major roles available to him right around the corner. We've also heard that he had a recent heart surgery, but he came out of that surgery successful. We've also heard that he was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but it is a new diagnosis in preliminary stages, and I don't think that would have caused this choice. We know he's had a history of alcohol addiction, that he came out of rehab depressed, but nevertheless, he came out of rehab a month ago. We've heard that he had bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is something that's created in parenting with great expectations and very little coaching. It's a life of pretending and crashing. We know that Robin was depressed his whole life, and that behind depression are feelings of emptiness, worthlessness, loneliness, and the pervasive feeling of being flawed. There are feelings of abandonment that are ongoing. Bipolar disorder is often medicated with mood stabilizers or antidepressants, but we know that there's a substantial percentage of the population that responds to psychotropic medications with homicides and suicides. Anxiety and depression are the flip side of the same problem from childhood resulting from abandonment trauma. One, anxiety, is a ongoing fear of not being good enough so that you might be abandoned again, whereas depression is the experience that you have discovered and you are hiding the feeling that you are not good enough, that you are flawed. And so most people with depression have a secret that they're not as cool as everybody might think they are. According to the interviews that I've seen, I haven't seen them all, Robin Williams was raised in a fairly affluent household. He talks about how he lived in a mansion at one point that was not fully furnished, and it was far away from other children. And he was very lonely there, that he lived on the third floor, which he had all to himself, and that his parents were often gone. His father was a very hard worker who was trying to recover his own financial loss, and his mother was often gone too. But when she was there, Robin felt that the way to keep her attention, and that's so important to a child, the way to keep her attention was to entertain her. He knew that she liked to joke. She was a jokester. He imprinted joking from her as well. So their relationship was built upon humor, and as long as he could make her laugh, he could keep her. At least so he thought as a child. So that's the philosophy of Robin Williams. It's a philosophy born of childhood that lived in his adulthood as well. He spent extended periods alone, conversing with himself with characters that he invented in order to keep himself company. And maybe even that he was rehearsing some of these characters to share with his mother and to entertain her. He became famous for his voices and making people laugh. He was either on or off. He didn't really fully, if he was bipolar, didn't fully understand the source of his success. He was successful because he was so entertaining. And so it was an ongoing experience. He had to continue to entertain people to be worthy of their attention. And behind that belief that a person has to keep it up and keep up the show and keep up the appearance is the feeling that underneath, if I don't, they'll find out I'm a fraud. They'll find out I'm depressed. And so for that reason, all the recognition in the world didn't really count, because behind it was a secret that he wasn't enough. And he lived with that secret. And it was something he could never escape. He could never become successful enough. I think at one point he might have had hopes, when all the success was going on, that this was it, that this was going to conquer those feelings. But when some of his successes started to slip, and there was a divorce, or there was financial issue with too much spending, then he began to become more aware that pervasive feeling of loneliness and emptiness and not being enough was something that was chasing him. And it really chased him because it was what adults experience when they didn't have enough love from their primary caregiver, or enough attention, or enough cherishing. They miss it. But after a while, she was gone, and there was no chance to get back that his mother might have cherished him, and that he might have heard from her the assurance that he was enough. If Robin Williams had doctors who believed in genetic explanations for bipolar disorder, then that would have given him the impression that there really was no hope, especially if the hope was in the medication they prescribed, and the medication had side effects that were really unpleasant. Robin believed that his problem was intrinsic and permanent, and that the emptiness and his lack of fundamental acceptance and the abandonment trauma never relented. He lived with the legacy of abandonment. So, after achieving so much success that could not be sustained, he had to conclude that it was still not enough, that he was still not enough. He ran out of hope. He could never perform enough. He could never be successful enough. He could never be recognized enough or loved enough to end the internal pain. Of course, it wasn't true that he wasn't enough. And a good therapist or a mother could have turned that around. The childhood abandonments were all about his worth, and he had to continually earn his acceptance. He had to entertain nonstop to be cherished. If only his mother could have shown him how precious and priceless he was before, after, and behind all the joking. He lived with a void that to entertain was his only way out of the pain that wouldn't go away. So a good therapist would have recognized the emptiness, figured out that it was born of attachment failure. It should have been one of the first questions they asked, and that it was not about him having fragile genes. Maybe if his parents were still alive, they could have brought the parents in, brought the mom in especially, and she could have helped expose the lie that he was intrinsically unlovable. Sometimes it's not too late. Even if the parents are already gone, there are some things that can be done. There can be dialogue with an empty chair. Here's a letter that I would have written to Robin if he had been my son. My darling son, I see you are depressed. I know why. You never had my unconditional love, or so you thought. You thought you had to entertain me to keep my attention. You must have thought you weren't enough. I never intended to give you that message. I am so sorry not to have realized what I was causing you to think about yourself. You have delighted me with your wit and humor, but this you must know. Without your brilliant ability to make me laugh, I still adore you. Behind all your characters is my son, the son I love and cherish for real. I am so sorry that I was so self-invested that I did not take the time to ensure that you knew well how I saw you, cherished you, and understood you. Obviously, I never took the time to fully appreciate you as much as you were worth it. You are my very own miracle. You are the best thing I ever brought to this world. But I was so lonely myself that I was chasing after experiences to fill my own emptiness. You are good with a capital G. You are enough. If only I had spent more of my precious time with you, it would have benefited me as well as you. Please let all of us closest to you enjoy the real you. Please take the risk to see how much we treasure you, you who hides behind the mask. You will be pleasantly surprised, my son. It's you we love.